Jim Williams, media consultant, sends me information, sends us a lot, constantly helping us. We appreciate him. I had a quote from Jim from earlier about grant of rights, and of course today the story about the Pac-12 that they agreed weeks ago, at least in, I guess you could say, agreement on the grant of rights. Still to be determined the details. Jim, thank you very much. Paul Craig and David Smoak. So when you saw that they had agreed several weeks ago to agree on a grant of rights, did you, like maybe most, go, but what is on the paper?
I basically said that that's like you, me, Paul, and Craig agreeing to go to dinner at a Chinese restaurant but not ordering it. We agree on, we can agree on what we're going to give. In other words, intellectual content and copyright to all of our marks and all that. I mean, that's fine. But until you agree to who you're giving it to, it really doesn't much matter.
Jim, this media deal could stretch on for another few weeks. It feels like that, like before media days would be kind of the deadline, or before San Diego State needs to tell somebody, at least in that regard. But why is this news out there now, do you think?
I have no idea, because it's really not news. I mean, I suppose that you could argue that the news that came of it was that, I'm trying to think of a positive thing. I mean, I guess the thing that you could say is nobody said no, but I don't know. You know what? I think probably the takeaway from this is that nobody's getting an unequal share. So in other words, the speculation that Oregon and Washington would want more money was not something that, was a hindrance. So, they're all getting an equal share of nothing at this point, but they're all getting equal.
Yeah, Jim, I was trying to find the positives and be open-minded and unbiased about it. And I guess the good news is that if, Oregon and Washington say we want more than you guys based on this, then everybody said okay. And that's, notable, right. But it's also not the contract being signed. I did have this to follow up, and I don't know if you saw this just now either, but I was just asking how does Robbins from Arizona not know when asked about them coming to an agreement on the grant of rights? And I thought perhaps he got asked the wrong question, right? I was just speculating this. Right. Well, here's Ross Dellinger, Arizona President Robert Robbins, meeting with media, says he's unaware of any agreement among Pac-12 schools and a grant of rights, and there won't be until we see a deal. We have not seen a deal. Would Arizona be interested in moving conferences? Depends on what our financial deal is. So that is within the last 5 minutes. But he's saying that, he's unaware of any agreement even for the revenue. So is this just, I guess, trying to put some positivity out into the stratosphere because they've needed a little bit of that, I suppose? A little PR work? Is that what this is, maybe more than anything?
I suppose. But if you're going to have one of your presidents stab you in the back, I'm not necessarily sure that maybe he missed the memo. I don't know. But, look, to me, when I saw it come up, I thought, well, let me call somebody and find out. And I did. And, one of the people that has been very kind to me on the PAC side said, look, we're making some, progress, but we got to get this thing done. And so you would think that we would be making progress. And I didn't ask, when I asked about the grant of rights situation, he said, I'm sorry, I don't know, about that. Now, he didn't say, was John Canzano wrong? No, he didn't. He didn't say that, and I didn't say that. But what I did say is, basically, there's nothing. If you don't know your media partner, you can't sign a grant of rights because you're not assigning the rights to anybody.
Is this more about giving a specific administrator the authority to approve grant of rights? Is this maybe not as big as it seems? I'm not saying it's not a big deal. It's at least progress, but could this be more like that?
You know what it could be? And again, this is 100% speculation, which seemingly I'm doing a lot these next couple of days. But anyway, this might be a thing where they said, look, guys, we need to find out, here's what we're going to do with grant of rights, blah, 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 and sketch something out. Are you all cool with that? Right? And they say, yeah, because they don't know what the media deal is. So why would they not be willing to do that? My guess is that they're not going to get to see a media deal, a final media deal, unless the deal, they know what each one of these presidents is expecting. So why would you show anybody a deal that they're going to say no to, unless that's the only deal you have? So I think what this was, an attempt perhaps at showing, okay, we're still uniform, because they got, the Colorado thing is going crazy out there now, and others. Maybe it was and again, speculation on my part. Maybe what they were trying to do was, craft something to say, look, we're all together still, and we agree on the grant of rights. But as I said, the only real takeaway to me was that Washington and Oregon would get an equal share, which, if you don't know what the thing is anyway, it doesn't matter. So I don't know. Anyway, that to me, it's like a blank piece of paper. You're saying something that you're all together on this, but you're all together on what? What exactly are you all together on?
We've heard different administrators of the Pac-12 who said that we hope to stay together, we plan to stay together, but we still need to see the media deal. That's not changed, has it?
I can't see. I mean, again, the short answer is no. You're right, 100%. I mean, I don't even. I'm trying to think of a reason, and again, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here. I have no idea why you would just send this out. I mean, it's just nothing. We agreed to nothing. Literally, that's what that means.
If I had a blank piece of paper and I said, this is your 3-year contract with nothing on it, but I need you to sign it, would you?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Well, for you, maybe, but I didn't know.
Yeah. All right. One of the reasons initially that we
I don't know about Paul, though.
Yeah.
No,
well, and he has no authority, and in about a week he has no authority.
I know. I'm not the CEO of my own company anymore.
No,
so
you're not.
I'm kidding. I do it for you too, Paul.
Jim
and Craig.
Yeah, and we would love to have you under a 3-year contract. So yesterday the news from with the PGA Tour LIV merger and all of that, with the PIF, the fund now being a major, if not the largest, and it will be the largest chunk funding the tour. Now,
Right.
What I loved about what you told me earlier today was that's a big old story. There's no question. Monstrous story. But it could be much bigger than that about what PIF may want to do moving forward, because if the PGA Tour allows them to be a part of that franchise, then what's to keep them from getting involved in pro sports franchises, bidding, leagues, etc.?
Right. I mean, they're already in the Premier League in England. They own a team. They tried recently to buy F1 for $16 billion, which was twice what it was valued at. So if they make a beachhead, PIF makes a beachhead here in the United States, well, then there would be nothing stopping them, except for, if the leagues choose not to accept their money, from buying, franchises in any particular sport in the United States.
Jim, one thing billionaires like is other billionaires' money, all pooled together that can solidify their power, and that's the American business ideal we have right now. So, I mean, is there any stopping it? I mean, the government makes deals with Saudi Arabia too. I mean, so it's not like this is a country that we're completely at odds with.
No, and in fairness, Paul, to your point, in fairness, the NBA has done business with China for a number of years. Okay, so if you're going to go, if you're going to go the route of, well, we're not going to do business with them because of their human rights issues, which, look, again, without getting political into this, because we don't want that aspect of it, but I mean, certainly, no, I don't. Anybody would agree, I would think, that that human rights issues are issues that you don't want to get into and that. But geopolitically and economically, that drives the bus. And so the answer to the question is yes. And if the leagues wanted the opportunity and wanted to give PIF the opportunity to involve themselves, then they would. I mean, they make value judgments every day on who their sponsors are. And they have to live with it. And at the end of the day, the guy, and I think Rory brought this up in his press conference. If he didn't, I don't know where I heard it from one of the players. There's a guy by the name of Jimmy Dunn. Okay, Jimmy Dunn is really big in the tour. He's a Wall Street guy, but he also is a member of Augusta National. And Jimmy Dunn was he lost a lot of his friends and people who worked with him on 9/11. So when LIV came about and Jimmy was, involved with the PGA, there were a lot of people that went to him and asked him, and he was very adamant about, this is nothing I want to be involved with, blah, 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 blah. So Jimmy Dunn was critical in that aspect. He was kind of the touchstone where Rory McIlroy and all those guys, they loved Jimmy Dunn, and they felt, that the point that Jimmy Dunn brought up was good. Now, fast forward to yesterday, Jimmy Dunn is cool with it. So, that takes away that element of it. So, it's a story that is massive on a golf front, but it's also a story that could, and we're just talking here on the afternoon, could be interesting going forward.
If you had to guess, obviously this is the PGA Tour LIV, et cetera, now the merger, but if you had to guess, and you've mentioned F1 and whatever else, what would they go after first now that they've basically sewn up professional golf? What would be next for them? You mentioned soccer in Europe. What would be next?
Well, I would think that it would be a National Football League team because, if we've learned anything about, what interests the Saudis, it's the big ticket items, right? They're not going to go buy, an MLS team. They're going to, no shade on the MLS, but they want the biggest brand. Okay. So my guess would be that, it would be an NFL team. And that's, again, just a speculation, but, that's the biggest thing in the country. So, that would likely be the biggest thing that would attract them to want to purchase something. And I talked to Paul Azinger about a half an hour ago, and Paul was like, he says there's a lot of this stuff that, because if you take the fund out of it, the Saudi fund out of it, there were a lot of innovative things that he thought, like team events and things like that. He says, look, eventually that would make a lot of sense. There's a lot of, and that would give people, a way to make money that, we're talking about players on the lower end of the spectrum, a way to make money that they don't have now. So he said, there's definitely some pros and cons. So there's some things I believe in the LIV Tour that will probably live on in the PGA. But there's a whole lot of, we opened this thing up with not a lot of details on the page, and we're here at the golf aspect of it, and there's not a lot on the page. I mean, there's a lot to be determined because no one knows at this point how are they going to let the LIV players back in, to the PGA after all the animosity and angst that went on through that.
Well, at least it appears as if they're going to make them still have to, at least that's the discussion, that make them whatever. If Mickelson got $300 million, he's paid $100 million, and then the whatever's left, he's going to get paid over the next 3 years, that he might have to forfeit that. I don't know. and then on top of that, still pay some entry fees or at least the fines. That'll be interesting. This is far from over. Jim, the final thing is the PGA Tour is on CBS. They are on NBC. I think, I don't know if they're ESPN.
They're on ESPN, yeah.
The Golf Network, which is owned by NBC. I think all this. Does this affect any of that at all?
Well, yeah, I'm interested in finding out. I talked to some folks at NBC today. Nobody knew this. Okay, they did not inform any of their media partners that they were doing it. And and it's like, they break the news on CNBC. So I mean, think about it. If you're ESPN, if you're CBS, if you're, I guess technically NBC Sports can get some of a win out of a CNBC show. But they broke the news on CNBC. None of their media partners knew this. Rory McIlroy said that he had he got a text from Jimmy Dunn saying, it wasn't even from my hand. It was from Jimmy Dunn saying, can I call you in the morning? There's something we have to talk about.
Wow, man.
And he's at the Canadian Open, where, he's getting ready to play. He's the defending champion. And this is like 2 years in a row at the Canadian Open.
Yep.
The live thing's gone on. So, the poor folks at the Canadian Open are like, man, we can't buy a break.
Jim, great stuff, man. Thank you. I'm not sure if you heard the interview we had with Jimmy Walker. I know you have a lot to listen to, but he was very, very upfront, very honest, very upset. And then again, also very honest at the end that had he been offered money with his game struggling, then who knows? But he wasn't one of those they were targeting. But thank you so much for your time and feedback and what you also help bring to the show when you're on with us and even when you're not. Thank you.
Well, it's always a pleasure, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I would sign a blank piece of paper for any of you.
There you go. There we go. That's why Jim Williams, Forbes columnist, with us